Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Firehouse Table Talk. I'm your host, Scott Jones, from One Brother, One Sister in the Addicted Community Coalition, along with ATC, Sober Life Studios. We all come together. It's all one big company trying to do the right things and help people with addictions, mental health, and certainly bringing that knowledge to the public, and most importantly, to our first responders, who I have to tell you something. I've met quite a few of them in the South Florida area and even getting into middle Florida. Never met a finer group of people than the firefighters, the police officers, the veterans, and the military people that I've been dealing with. Never better people. And always want to remind you, I know things are tough sometimes. I know things get a little bit crazy. Florida's not always the best place to be when they start doing political stuff, but at the end of the day, it's all about how we act towards each other. Take a few moments, thank our first responders, do something nice. If you've got a fire station in your neighborhood, stop in and say thank you. Drop off some cookies. I know they always like the cookies. I know they're supposed to be staying in shape, but nobody can turn down a good peanut butter cookie. Drop some off. Show some appreciation. And these people, the men and women in the first responders, deserve it, especially our friends up here in Palm Beach Garden Fire and Rescue. We've been working with them for quite some time. Chief Breyer has been nothing but gracious and supportive of our mission and the mission he has to make his work environment safe, healthy, and happy has been incredible. So that's who we're going to be talking to, coming back with our friend Chief Breyer. He's missed a show or two, but you're back with us. How you doing, Chief?
I am, Scott. It's good to see you, my friend.
Very good to see you. I hope things are treating you well. I hope life is good.
Life is good, and I hope same for you.
Absolutely. And hey, fingers crossed, we've made it through most of hurricane season without a problem yet. So
no kidding. We still have a good ways to go, but so far so good. We'll take it.
We still do. And that's actually one of the things we're going to be talking about today is we spent a lot of time talking with the great people. We've been able to, Chief Ippolito was on here with us once, and we had a couple other people. We were talking about fitness and nutrition and how you guys take care of yourselves and the readiness that you do and all of the pieces that you do. But I would like today for us to appeal to the community and appeal to them in ways of there are things that you can do to prevent having to get a visit from Palm Beach Garden Fire and Rescue. As much as you guys are fun to have around, usually when you show up, it's because something's gone wrong. Correct. And maybe if we bring some of those topics out and people can think a little bit about some of the things they do before they do them, we can hopefully keep you guys a little less busy and keep everybody a whole lot safer. What do you think?
I think it's a great idea. For us, Scott, it's much easier to mitigate an emergency way before it's happened rather than once it's happened. For us, once those things are put into play, putting people in apparatus and screaming, lights and sirens across town, and there's too many variables that could go wrong in an emergency situation. So, a good offense is always, or a good defense is always the best offense, right? So the more education that we can get out there and the more we can educate people, the less likely they're able to see us on what might be the worst day of their life. So we're all about going out there and educating the community.
Absolutely. That's where we're heading today. And we've got the perfect person to join us in this group.
We do.
This guy happens to be the community risk educator, coordinator. He is a great guy, Casey Klein. He's been on the show before. Let's bring him in. Casey, how are you, my friend?
Scott, good morning or afternoon. I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Hey, it's a Friday. It can't be wrong. Things are good.
It is. That's always good.
Things are good. The Dolphins are winning in their football games. There's a lot of good things going on in the world.
Absolutely.
I'm a Bears fan, and it is not a good time to be a Bears fan.
Oh, no. I like that guy. I like that guy they're using as a quarterback. Unfortunately, he's not a good quarterback. So
no, it does not seem to be so.
Yeah. Is Jim McMahon still alive? Can you get him back?
We need some. We've not had anyone decent since him.
No, you haven't. But hey, listen, I appreciate your loyalty to a team, even in the worst of times.
Things could turn around. So I don't want to jump off the bandwagon, and then in a few years we're in the Super Bowl, and because I'm also a Cubs fan. And 2016, I waited a long time to enjoy a World Series win, and finally got to in 2016. And it was worth all the wait. So
stick with the Bears, my friend. One day your grandchildren will celebrate their win. All right. I'm sorry. I was an Eagles. I've been an Eagles fan forever. I waited a long time for them to come around too. Casey, real quick, describe real quick what your job is, because it sounds to me like it's right up what we're going to be talking about today.
Sure, absolutely. So there's a few sides, but two different sides to the fire department. One is what we typically think of, the operation side and the response side. And then we have the prevention side, and the prevention side is where I work. And my job and my goal is I do outreach and education with our community. So on a variety of topics, it could be fire safety, home assessments, making sure our homes are safe against fall prevention. We do some CPR classes, AED training, kind of anything that involves the fire service. Our goal is to educate and outreach into our community as much as possible.
So you invite the public in to get for these informational services, right?
Sure, we invite them in. We go to them. We will kind of do whatever's necessary. So just this morning, I had a group of students into one of our fire stations. We did a station tour, and we educate them a little bit as we do that. But then this morning, I was also installing a smoke alarm, some smoke alarms in a residence here. So we love for people to come and visit and see us, but we also will get out and go meet people where they are.
That's you know what, this is a perfect place to start. And again, hats off to Palm Beach Garden Fire and Rescue for having somebody who is making that connection with the community. Chief, do you see a response from the community when you're doing these outreach programs?
We really do. Hardly a class goes by that Casey does that we don't get direct feedback, that I get something sent to me just on how informative it was, how much there's just on how many things they just didn't know about a specific subject. Casey does a ton of CPR within the community, and it always goes over well. We sometimes see people that have had successful cases with CPR that come back to the classes, but everything, and he covers everything from fall prevention to CPR to drowning prevention week to stroke prevention. I mean, he covers it all. And it's really about getting that information out there in such a way that people can have, you know, a good amount of information to take away to keep themselves and their family healthy.
That's good. Casey, I imagine that working with people is a lot of fun too.
It is. You know, that's the joy of it, is getting to know the community, getting to know our citizens, and people leaving a class feeling prepared and ready to respond to whatever it is, whether it's fire safety, whether it's CPR. It's a lot of fun. Absolutely.
That's terrific. So I've got a lot of research here and different things. Most of this information I'm getting from NFPA, which is a national the National Fire Protection Association. Got a lot of good information there.
You got it.
We're going to talk about that. I want to lead off with the one that I really lean into is obviously don't do drugs. Just don't do drugs, people. But alcohol. In the land of sun and fun down here in Florida, it seems like a lot of people add alcohol to the mix, whether they're at the beach or they're in a park or they're doing some outdoor activity. Mixing alcohol with the extreme heats and being on the beach and things like that, that's a real dangerous thing, isn't it, Casey?
Yeah, I mean, just the heat exposure in general down here. We see a lot of dehydration. A lot of people get themselves in trouble. Most of us probably don't drink as much water and get as many electrolytes as we should. Just with the heat and the sun exposure we get down here in South Florida. And then when you mix alcohol into that bunch, it can be a dangerous recipe. Not even talking about the driving aspect that can be involved there. Just being out and about, probably not eating enough, probably not getting enough water, and spending your day dehydrated, exhausted, and consuming alcohol leads to too many calls that first responders have to run on that would always prefer not to.
Yeah, that cold beer on a hot day might feel good going down, but it
Mhm.
does not hydrate you. It is
It does
because
not.
it's unless your blood is made of alcohol, which actually mine was at one time, but I've had a transfusion. I'm all better now. No, it is not a good combination. And
Mm,
of course, with
no,
the drunk driving and stuff, certainly, Chief, did you
absolutely.
want to add anything to that thought?
Yeah, I know. I don't know that there's really any activity that anybody could do where adding alcohol is going to enhance that experience, to be honest
Mm,
with you. So, when they're out there, alcohol not only causes people not to really, on their normal cues, that if they were becoming dehydrated or they weren't feeling well, but it also adds that the alcohol vasodilates. When you're out in the sun, it all causes a whole host of problems that are compounded basically just from the alcohol in itself. But more importantly is when you're not going to recognize those symptoms that you normally would if something's not going right or you're not hydrating yourself properly. And it could be from anything. I mean, just being out in the sun, drinking all day, playing volleyball,
Yeah.
is causes people to pass out all the time.
mhm.
And if they're not getting enough electrolytes, depending on what their underlying medical conditions are, it could affect their heart, their kidneys. So there's a lot of issues with it. Again, I don't know that any activity that's actually enhanced with alcohol.
Mm.
Case, you also mentioned that even without the alcohol, it's dangerous because you could dehydrate. People
Sure.
don't recognize how dangerous is something like sunstroke.
Yeah, I mean, it can be deadly, if not addressed quickly. And so, I think it happens sometimes slowly. We don't even realize it. And between the heat, between dehydration and not enough electrolytes, uh, if our electrolytes are thrown out of balance, it can be enough to cause someone to go into cardiac arrest. So
Wow.
those are major heat exhaustion and heat stroke are nothing to play around with. September was Falls Prevention Month, for Falls Prevention Awareness Month, and we have a lot of 55 and over communities in our city, and so we did a lot of educating this last month and over the summer, particularly of just how to deal with that heat and making sure we're not going out at the hottest time of the day to exercise, especially if we're an older adult, making sure we're dressed properly for it, protecting our skin,
Yeah.
making sure we're putting that sunscreen on, um, and just being aware. So much of it is knowing our limitations and being willing to live within that, and know me being out at 4 o'clock in the afternoon when the heat index is 103, walking my 2 miles that I like to walk every day, is maybe not the best recipe.
Yeah. Yeah. Chief, we've seen more this year than probably any year that I can remember. Heat warnings day after day, excessive heat warnings coming through the weather services. People should not ignore those, should they?
No, not at all. And it's really not about the people. Think about it. How many people that we have that are working, that are roofers, that are working
Mm,
in
Yeah.
this heat, that
mm,
are doing construction in this heat? They're pretty well versed on how to keep themselves hydrated and take breaks. It's the people that are not used to that heat, or they're on a lot of medications that are gonna,
mhm,
it's gonna change the way their body reacts to that exposure to heat. So the reason that they're out there is because they're very significant, and South Florida is a perfect place for heat-related illness and injury, and heat stroke is one of the more deadlier ones. It not only can cause death, but it in times could cause permanent brain damage. So
mm.
it's important that people really heed those warnings, that when they come out, make sure they're doing the things that they need to do to keep themselves safe.
Absolutely. And, just to put this to bed, it's nice to go to the pool and sit in the water and feel like you're cooled off. But if you're not hydrating, you could still suffer the consequences of the heat, even if you're sitting in a pool. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, you're going to still become dehydrated if you're not hydrating yourself, even if you still lose fluid sitting in a pool.
There you go.
So,
All right. I'd like to move on to smoke detectors for a moment, smoke alarms.
Yeah.
It seems like this was something that was always talked about years ago, and it's kind of fallen off where it's not a conversation anymore. And I'm hoping it's because people have developed enough common sense to have them and keep the batteries good and do all of that. Is that the case, or are people getting lazy with these smoke detectors?
Sometimes that's the case. One thing that was interesting during the pandemic that we found was we would see those Zoom calls where someone's smoke alarm was constantly beeping in the back, telling them they need to replace the batteries. That was an interesting thing that happened during the pandemic. And man, smoke alarms, there are not many devices in your home that will help protect you. They won't prevent a fire, we always like to say. But those early warning devices and a smoke alarm uh, increase your chances of escaping the home in a fire way more likely than anything else. And so, yeah, we hope that people are following through on that and still doing them. We encourage everyone, even if you're not here in Gardens, you can always call your local fire department and they'll come out and check batteries or see what's going on. But smoke alarms should be installed on every floor of the home, inside of every bedroom. That's something that people don't realize. Why do I need one in my bedroom? We would encourage you always sleep with your bedroom door closed. That will help protect you in the event of a fire in another part of the home. And so having that door closed, that we want a smoke alarm in our bedroom to alert us and notify us if something in the rest of the house, if something were to start in that bedroom. So one on every floor, one in every bedroom, but then one outside of every sleeping area in the hallways. And so you need to make sure hardwired, if you can get hardwired interconnected smoke alarms, those are ideal because if one goes off, they all go off, notifying everyone in the house. But checking those batteries, even those hardwired ones have a backup battery, checking those batteries every 6 months. When it starts beeping, warning you that the battery's going bad, make sure you don't just silence it or unplug it or take it down. Replace that battery, keep it up there. It is a life-saving device. And now the way that they're making alarms, most of them, if they're not hardwired, are 10-year alarms where there's no battery, there's no 9-volt battery to replace. So you still test it every month, make sure it's working. And after 10 years, the alarm still may work, but there's no 9-volt battery to replace every 6 months. It's a battery that will last. The alarm lasts until the alarm lasts, and then you replace it. So it's not difficult. It's not rocket science, but unfortunately, as you said, it's something that not enough people are diligent about doing.
It really is important, and a good rule of thumb is if you do have the batteries, if one of them beeps, then change the batteries in all of them.
Exactly,
and that's just an easier way, because the problem is if one beeps, you change the battery. Now 2 weeks later, the next one beeps. Then you start getting to that point where you're like, just take it out and leave it out.
I'm tired of messing with these. Yeah.
Never a good idea. You see, a lot of times people are cooking and they start burning their food, which, first of all, learn how to cook. But secondly, if you take that battery out because it's going off because there's smoke in your kitchen, and then they don't put it back in, or they just leave it out because, well, I'm going to cook tomorrow too, and I'm going to cook the very bad idea, right?
Yeah, a majority of the kitchen is the number one place of home fires. The number one cause of fires at home is they start in the kitchen, and the most common one is unattended cooking. So making sure for sure that you don't want to have one right above the stove. That's just not a good idea because it's going to go off all the time. It's going to be a nuisance alarm. Have it at least 10 feet away from the stove. And then it shouldn't go off as often. And alarms are getting better and better where they don't do that as often as they used to, particularly in the kitchen area. So
having a good venting system helps as well.
Exactly.
Right?
If you have a vent on top of your range and you're cooking, anything on the stovetop, turn it on. It helps keep the smell out of your house. Two, it helps keep the home safer by keeping all that out of the house. So yeah, could turn that venting system on for sure.
Chief, you guys are available to answer questions or help out with anybody with smoke alarm problems. Isn't that right?
Absolutely. In fact, if we have somebody that doesn't have smoke detectors, we will get them and install them in their home for them. That's how important they are.
Wow. Now you could buy these anywhere. Is there any sort of rating on these? Is there any supposed to be some inspected by or approved by labeling on any of these?
You're
We
really
should look
just looking for a UL listed or factory mutual tested smoke detector that you'll see. So there's, your big box stores. You'll see them in Costco. You'll see them in those type stores where you can pick them up. But you're looking for something that's UL listed or factory mutual or FM rated. But for the most part, the ones that are on the market have been tested, and they're all good. And very rarely are we having fatalities in homes that have smoke detectors, right? There
Yeah.
are some circumstances where people might be bedridden and can't get out. But for the most part, homes that have smoke detectors, a fire occurs, they're outside the house by the time we get there.
Mm-hmm.
Again, the National Fire Protection Association listed as more than 2/3 of fatalities don't have smoke alarms. It's a simple thing you could do. They're not expensive. And it's a pain to put them up for 5 minutes, but it saves you for a lifetime. So it's like, just deal with it, people. You mentioned something else that I was going to get to, and I might as well jump on it now. Walking away from the stove. People have a habit of doing that. I'm just going to run out and check the mail. Then they end up talking to their neighbor. They got something cooking. They go in the other room to see the sports event. Same with grilling. People will start up their grills, get a flame going, and then walk away from it. These are bad habits, aren't they, Casey?
They are. And unattended cooking is the number one cause of fires at home. And adults, we think we can multitask. We think we can do 10 things at the same time. And it can be something as simple as using the microwave. I'm going to put these ramen noodles in the microwave for a minute. We had a kid tell me a story a few weeks ago about this college age kid. Put the ramen noodles in the microwave, forgot to put water in it, walked away. Next thing he knows, the kitchen area in his dorm was full of smoke, and all because he had walked away. And luckily he came back before a fire started. But so often we want to do 15 different things at the same time. And if you are cooking anything on the stovetop, we would advise against it. Don't do it. If you have to walk out of the kitchen, turn the stove off, and then walk away.
Now, would that be similar advice if you're grilling outside as well?
Sure. And when you're grilling, make sure. So I have a story. I was probably high school age, and wanted to cook some hot dogs or something at my parents' house. Fired our grill up. It was right against the house with vinyl siding. I get done and had seriously, I didn't burn anything, but seriously warped the siding, and got a perspective of, oh, this thing's hot. This thing could do some damage. So making sure the grill's away from anything that could catch fire, especially if we're cooking anything that's particularly greasy, burgers, anything that's going to drip down into those flames. We all have probably seen how quickly a grill can get hotter than we've wanted it to. And so, don't walk away. That's actually, so in a couple weeks, Fire Prevention Week is coming up, and the theme this year is cooking safety starts with you. So they're focused on this very subject, just making sure we are starting with cooking safety with myself and keeping an eye, doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
Obviously, watch out for the little kids too that are running around. If you're in the kitchen, keep the handles turned towards the stove, not hanging out over the stove. And the grills, you don't set it up where your kids are playing football. You just try to, and don't put it near the house. I've got a neighbor with like this melted circle on his house from where he put his Weber, and he hasn't fixed it yet. And I got to chuckle every time I see it, but it could have been much worse.
Could have been. Absolutely.
moving on, one of the things that I remember when I was in school, I assume they still do fire drills and safety drills
Mhm.
when I was a kid. But I don't ever remember my parents going over a plan in our house. Now, we lived
Yeah.
in a split level, 2-story house up in New York. It probably would have been a smart idea so that if anything ever does happen, everybody knows what to do, the kids, the moms, the dads, and there's a plan.
Mhm.
Do you guys encourage people making plans and talking about it with their kids, especially?
Of course, yeah, that's it. That was actually the theme of Fire Prevention Week last year. Um, so it's huge. And you mentioned NFPA earlier. You can go on to NFPA or a bunch of other websites and download a template that your family could use, or draw a map of the inside of your home. Everyone in the home should know 2 ways out of every room. So whether that's a doorway and a window or 2 doorways, making sure everyone knows that. You have an escape plan that you've drawn out, that you've worked together as a family to show each other. As part of that, you have a meeting place that's outside. That way, when everyone gets out of the house, everybody knows we're going to gather in the same place. That way, mom's not running in after Susie because she didn't meet in the
Yeah.
meeting place and she was over swinging on the neighbor's swing. Um, Having that, creating it together as a family, but then practicing it regularly is huge. And that is invaluable for families.
My son built his bedroom hangout space when he got a little bit older in the attic, and I
Mm,
immediately went out and got one of the rolling ladders that can roll out the window, the
sure.
hook can roll out the window, and he's like, "We're never going to use this," and I said, "I would rather be in a position where I never have to say I wish I bought it."
Yeah. Yeah.
Chief,
Absolutely.
do you get that a lot where people say I should have and I should have?
Of course, and usually it's way too late, right? They wish they would have put the batteries in their smoke detectors. They wish they would have had a ladder to get out from a second story. It's all about preparation, but people don't think for the most part that this is something that happens to somebody else, something else
Mm,
that I read in the news or something. But we can't stress how important that these things are, and these are really good habits to pass on to your children,
mm,
right? And you can make that fun. You can make testing your smoke detectors, having your kids do it and having it be fun, and then saying, okay, listen, let's just practice. If this alarm goes off, where's everybody going to go? Not only do those home fire drills make it, escape plans make it safe for the family, but it makes it safe for the firefighters as well, because if somebody doesn't go to the meeting place and is not accounted for, we assume they're still in that house,
mm.
which means we're going in, which puts
Yeah.
us at a lot of risk. So teaching that to your children and then saying to them, listen, this is why we do it and this is where we're going to go. And like Casey said, it's really about practicing it and keeping it in the forefront. But I think parents have a good opportunity to make this a fun thing for their kids
Mm.
and make it a family thing. And then hopefully they take these habits as they grow older and they'll pass them on to their children.
Even basic ideas of if there is an alarm going off or something's happening, to understand, touch a door before you open a door,
Exactly.
and if the door's hot, I imagine, Casey, there's been many cases where if they had just left the door closed and maybe gone for the window instead of trying to get in the hallway, it might have turned out better, right?
Well, and the first part that you said there about the alarm going off, so often alarms go off and we just think, ah, it must be mom's cooking again, or it, we
Yeah.
don't we don't treat a fire alarm, a smoke alarm, as something serious. And part of that are those nuisance alarms that we talked about, that we become when we have those nuisance alarms and we don't respond to them, that puts us in a dangerous position if a fire ever does occur. So
Yeah.
we're always telling people, whether it's at home or in a commercial building, a public building, if you hear a fire alarm, treat it as a real emergency, and get out of the building. Um, we have a really cool interactive trailer that we take around to different events. And one room is a kitchen, and so we'll teach young kids and even teenagers and parents about being safe in the kitchen. Some of this stuff that we've talked about. Then the other half of the trailer is a bedroom, and we can get fake smoke to come underneath the door. The back of the door will actually heat up, And so we will use it to teach kids, if you see smoke coming under the door, and not just kids, any of us, should you open the door to find out what's going on out there? Well, certainly not. We want to leave that door closed. If it's hot, we can be confident that there's fire on the other side of that door. And the last thing I need to do is to open that door to feed that fire and invite it into that bedroom. So yeah, doing those simple things, touching the back of the door, and use the back of your hand, because if you use your fingertips, they're a little more sensitive, likely to get burned. We don't want to burn our fingertips off. Using the back of your hand against that door to check and see, is the door warmer than it should be. Those simple things, but like Chief said, so much of it is about preparation, and as adults, making sure children know these things and practice them and are aware of them.
Yeah, and I like what Chief said. I mean, you can make it a fun thing for the family, and you can make it informational, and turn it into a little bit of an adventure, and practice escape routes. It could be really cool, and it could change somebody's life. It could save somebody's life. One of the things we see a lot down here in Florida is lightning, and many people think it'll never happen to me. Now, me being one of the Struck by Lightning club, I'll tell you, it's not fun. I wasn't directly struck. I was holding a tent up while the lightning struck the tent, and it took 5 of us out. We just went down. But I understand the power of lightning. And people say, there's lightning in the area. They say get indoors and do things like that. Do you find people not paying attention to that, or what are you seeing out there?
Yeah, so much of it is what you said. It's so much of about everything. We always think that would never happen to me. And a few just last week, a couple of us were at an event setting some stuff up, and lightning started. And we were just there, and there were some other kids that were there, and a pretty serious storm started. And they're out on the playground playing around. And we aren't aware of how deadly and how dangerous lightning can be. And so, yeah, absolutely. We get people that just don't heed those warnings in the way that they should. And whether you get struck directly or whether it's through the ground or through something you're holding, none of it's good. We don't want any of it.
And most of the time, it doesn't last that long, which I like down here. You get a really serious storm. 10 minutes later, the sun's coming back. But just for that time, be safe. And Chief, we keep going over it. I mean, I should have, I could have, especially with weather events, whether it's tornado warnings, hurricane warnings, flooding, or strong storms. People become immune to, well, it's not going to happen to me. I'll be fine. I'll just ride it out. And every one of those people is sooner or later going to end up in a bad spot,
Look, talk to the people that went through Andrew. I had went down there as part of a deployment sometime after that, early in my career. And it's amazing what Mother Nature can do and the damage that could be done. So, it's not like for a lack of knowledge. This information gets out way before hurricane season starts. If you've lived in South Florida for any time, the importance of doing that. And yet people still don't get their hurricane stuff done until there's a hurricane warning or even, a hurricane watch, right? Then you see everybody sprinting to the stores. There's no water, there's no wood, there's none of this. Like, it was a big surprise. Every year from June to November, we have hurricane season. So really make your life safer, better, and simpler by just planning ahead, getting a few supplies a little bit at a time and building that up. Get all your water that you need. And then after hurricane season, you use your water and then ramp it back up again. So you have it for backup. Make sure you have batteries and flashlights and all those things. The information is out there. People just really need to read it and to really understand that if it does happen in a major storm, it's probably going to be 72 hours till fire rescue personnel could get to you in a real bad storm. You are going to be self-sufficient for the first 72 hours. So plan for that.
Yes, absolutely. Don't do what I did, which is make sure I had coffee. I had all my Keurig. I bought a whole bunch of Keurig cups, little pods, and the power went out, and I was like, at least I have coffee. Then I realized I could not use them. So I was in a storm and going through caffeine withdrawal all at the same time. I was actually chewing coffee grounds. During these events, especially these weather events, when they come up, a lot of times we have power outages. Now we're dealing with two other issues that could be dangerous if you're not careful. One is candles, and two are generators.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of mistakes people make with both of those things. Well, the easiest one is candles. Don't light candles and leave them unattended, right?
It's as simple as that. It's like like the cooking. If you have a candle, excuse me, burning in a room, if you walk out of that room, blow the candle out. To make sure you're not putting them close to curtains or anything else that's flammable. And we really encourage people. They have those LED ones now that look so real, and emit the same amount of light that a candle would. I understand the smell. People love the smell of candles. Get some air freshener or something. Find a different alternative.
Yeah. The wax,
yeah,
wax warmers are nice because they're on a timer. They go off.
Yeah, yeah.
They'll give you the same scent from the wax that the candle will give you.
Exactly.
So then we have generators, and people will buy generators. And I'm going to tell you, probably 90% of people who buy generators and hook them up their house have never used a generator before. Don't know anything about how to store it, how to take care of it, and even just to keep it clean and test it and run it. A lot of things can go wrong with generators, right, Casey?
Yeah. They are an amazing thing to have in the event of a major weather issue, but can be extremely dangerous and hazardous if we don't know how to use them. One, just hooking them up. If you're going to hook it up to your home, have a qualified electrician come by and do it ahead of time, and make sure they're teaching you and showing you how exactly it works. Understand how that thing works before you ever try to use it. Two, maintaining them. If you're not firing that thing up a couple times a year just to test it and maintain it, it's just not wise. It's probably not going to do you a lot of good when the time comes to actually need it. But then the actual use of it. People love to run them in their garage, right by a door or a window. Please don't do that. You want to have it as far away from any opening as possible, because carbon monoxide is deadly. People can suffer carbon monoxide poisoning. You don't smell anything, you don't feel anything, and before you know it, you're unconscious. And if you're just going to keep breathing that in, it can be deadly. So they're great, but they know what you're doing when you use them. Absolutely.
I also see a lot of people storing all the gas like right next to them, and it's like, okay, probably not a good idea either. Keep that separate and in a safe place as well.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
We got a few more minutes. I'm going to get to a few more things.
Sure.
And I appreciate all of this. We mentioned the generators for our electricity, but electricity is something that people don't recognize as being dangerous when you start to overload outlets. We have so many extension cords that end up, I could plug this into an outlet and I could plug 17 things into this. And then I will chain together 3 or 4 of those power strips and put everything. That's not a safe thing, right?
No, sir. So yeah, we would say that we call that daisy chaining. Plugging an outlet into another cord or another outlet, or plugging an extension cord into another extension cord or one of these surge protectors is never a good idea. And we love to. We do have. You're right. We have so many appliances and so many things now that we need to plug in. And so overloading outlets can be a major issue. If an outlet ever feels hot or you see burn marks around it, do not use that outlet. Call an electrician, have them come check it out. If you ever see your extension cords are frayed, either on the ends or in the middle, if it's ever beginning to fray, don't use those. And this is one that I don't think a lot of people think about, but don't run extension cords. An extension cord should not be a permanent solution. I should not need an extension cord to use this lamp in my living room 24/7. Maybe I need to install another outlet or do something. So an extension cord should be temporary, and then extension cords should never be run underneath a rug or underneath furniture, and particularly underneath a rug, because I mean, think about an electric current is running through that cord, and then we're going to put this fabric rug on top of it. Um, and somehow we just don't seem to think about those things. So, yeah, those are a huge deal. And yeah, pay attention to those things. Be cautious about what you're plugging in. Make sure if you have any electrical work done, have a licensed qualified electrician doing that work.
Yeah.
All of them again seem simple, but we don't always operate in the simple things.
Yeah, generally with newer homes, there's a lot more outlets, but in the older homes, there weren't
Yeah.
as many as outlets, and you're trying to, and now you were overloading an older system, which is just,
Mhm.
even worse.
Yeah.
Also, if you're tripping breakers, if you're plugging things in and you plug in your hairdryer and the breaker trips, okay, maybe once I don't think about it, but if it trips again and again, I want to start thinking there's something wrong. I should have somebody
Mhm.
check it out. Breakers should
Mhm.
not just trip, should they?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. That's a huge red flag that something's going on there. Something's overloaded somewhere and
Yeah.
needs to be looked at. Absolutely.
All right. Two last things we're going to cover very quickly,
Yeah.
gentlemen. I appreciate this, and I hope people are
Absolutely.
paying attention to this. I hope people are starting to make some notes for themselves or find out more. Now, before we even finish this up, if they want to know more about anything or if they have questions about any safety stuff, you invite them to talk to you, don't you, Chief?
Absolutely. In fact, you can call us. You can call your local fire department, either their fire prevention bureau or their community risk reduction bureau, and talk to anybody there. The community educators, the fire inspectors, be more than happy to give them the information.
Absolutely. Clothes dryers.
Mm.
I think people don't understand that these can be quite dangerous between the buildup of heat, people not running the venting properly, and then lint,
Mm.
which I used to bring lint when I went camping because it starts fires really
It's a
easily.
great fire starter. Absolutely.
So if it's in a dryer and it's building
Yeah.
up in there, so have you come across that where that could be a real hazard?
Absolutely. So, one, clean your lint trap out every time you're using your dryer. That's a simple 30-second thing. Um, but then a major issue can be the venting. The hose is not run properly, and all that lint gets clogged up somewhere. So, one, make sure it's vented properly where air can flow out to wherever it needs to flow to. And then at least once a year, you've got to clean that hose out, clean all the lint out of that at least once a year, uh, cleaning that lint out of the hose, because that vent pipe. Um, I've seen some crazy videos where um, a, a, a maintenance guy or someone will start to clean those things out, and he'll be on the outside of a home or wherever pulling it out, and it's just coming and coming and coming. And if that were to ever catch fire, like you said, lint is an excellent way to start a fire. Um, and so that is a bad recipe. If you've got an exhaust vent full of lint and something were to spark in there.
Absolutely. Always check outside, make sure that nothing is covering the exhaust,
Hmm.
because that can build things up as well. And listen, if you don't, if fire safety is not enough for you, your dryer will perform better if it's clean,
Exactly.
if it's
Save you
taken
money.
care of, and it'll last longer. So if you're not interested in saving lives, how about saving some money and take care of your
There you go.
equipment
There you
anyway?
go.
All right. We're coming up on Halloween very shortly, the end of the next month, the end of October. Are there any safety tips you have, especially when it comes to what you dress your children like, as far as visibility and how they see? Do you guys have anything for that?
Yeah, I was doing some research the other day, and um, there was a medical group that did a study from 2011 to 2020 and found that on Halloween on October 31st, children between the ages of 4 and 8 were 10 times more likely to be killed in a motor vehicle accident than any other day of the year. And so, as we know, Halloween can be great. It can be there's neighborhood engagement. It can help people express their creativity. Brings people together. It can be a lot of fun. But if we're not operating safely in it, it can also be dangerous. So one, excuse me, make sure costumes fit in a way where a kid's not going to be tripping and falling all night long. Make sure they have good visibility, that a mask is not inhibiting their ability to see their peripheral vision. And then carry glow, either put something on the costume that's reflective, carry glow sticks or flashlights.
Yeah.
Do something to make sure that child will be visible. And if it's a child that's under the age of 12, a parent probably should be with them all the time anyways. And so accidents are going to happen, but there certainly are things that we can do to make sure as parents, kids are more visible and able to be seen. And then just encourage everyone else of all the nights, drive slower that night. Be aware that kids are going to be, because kids are going to be kids. They're going to dart out and do things because they're excited, and they're going to want to run and grab that candy bar or whatever it may be.
Well, they're all hopped up on Jolly Ranchers and Milk Duds. They're just running all over.
Exactly.
But I love that, and that's really, I want to repeat the two things you said that I think that we might not think about is when you have costumes that drag behind you or have fabric that drags or something like that, that can get caught on things and people can get hurt quite badly.
Sure,
fall down.
Sure.
But the peripheral vision, if your masks blocks your vision in any way, that's a potential for a disaster right there. And
absolutely.
I assume that's why there's so many motor vehicle fatalities, is kids don't even see the car.
Exactly. I'm sure. Yeah.
Chief, do you want to add anything to that for the Halloween safety?
Yeah, well, at the end of the day, it's the parents' responsibility to make sure their children are safe. So while you're out there and you're with your children and you're socializing with other friends, make sure you're keeping an eye on your child. And more importantly, that if you're going to transfer that responsibility, that should be a face-to-face, even between parents, mom to dad. Bring the child up. You're now responsible. You're watching the child now, because a lot of times there's just an assumption when somebody says, all right, go see dad, that child makes it to dad. So it's very important to do these hand-to-hand, face-offs directly. But remember, you're responsible. Your kids are out there having a good time. They look forward to this. Every year it's a big deal. They're going to be excited. They're going to be running around. So it's really that responsibility for your children rests solely on the parents. So make sure that you're not partaking too much in alcohol to where that's going to impair your judgment to keep your children safe. But, it's all, there's nothing worse than a tragedy on an occasion like this. So, take the time, do your due diligence, make sure everybody has fun and has a good time, a nice positive experience, and more importantly, comes home safe.
Have your cocktails after the trick-or-treating hours.
Exactly.
It's not a fun thing to see kids in costumes dragging dad in a wagon. It's not fun to see that. But also just a quick reminder that in most neighborhoods, the standard is if the light on the porch is on, they accept your knock. If the light on the porch is off, don't go to that house. And it could mean they're not home. It could mean they're not feeling well. There could be 1,000 reasons. Just go to the places with the lights on. And hey, in your neighborhood, if it's a nice night, sit outside, meet the kids, meet the people, hand them candy. And, I just hope everybody has a safe and healthy Halloween. But I know we'll be on before that. It'll probably be just before. So,
sure.
Guys, this has been great. I hope people got some information out of this. And I want to remind them again, whether you're calling Palm Beach Gardens Fire and Rescue or any other local first responder, firefighters for information, I'd rather you ask a dumb question than not ask a question at all. Just call and ask, right? A tiny bit of prevention can save a whole lot. And when it comes to saving, if you were given the choice to spend 10 minutes doing something that you don't want to do versus losing your son or daughter forever, which one are you going to do? Do the work to make your house safe, to make your life safe, take care of each other, and just God bless everybody. Final thoughts, Casey?
I appreciate you having us on. We want to do a good enough job of educating and communicating. We work ourselves out of a job, and so we always appreciate any opportunity to get the word out there about any way, whether it's fire, medical, any way folks can prevent emergencies and situations they don't want to find them in. We always appreciate the opportunity, and so a good piece of advice, particularly thinking about Halloween, just slow down. We're in a hurry all the time. Slow down. Think about what we're doing. Keep an eye on those stovetops. Keep an eye on our surroundings, and let's help keep each other safe.
Thank you so much. Chief, any final thoughts on safety and community?
Well, Scott, thanks for having us. Thanks for always reaching out and bringing this, first right out to the public so they can get this information and keep themselves safe. We always appreciate our partnership with you in getting this information out to people. And thank you for everything you and Karen do for not only the first responder community, but for everybody whose lives you guys touch. You're truly amazing. And we appreciate and really value and cherish our relationship with you guys.
Thank you so much, Chief. And as always, it's a great thing. We'll be back next month with another Firehouse Table Talk. If you have any questions, give us a call. Give me a call if you want to know anything about the podcast, if you want to know something about fire safety or anything that you could do to get involved. There's always something going on. There's always something where you can do something that's going to help yourselves, your family, and your community. So get involved, people. Thank you so much, gentlemen. It's been a great show.
Thank you.
Thanks, Scott.
Reminder to everybody to, hey, like this channel and share it with your friends, because maybe this is information that they need to hear and that they need to see as well. For now, Scott Jones saying thanks for joining us. We'll catch you next time right here on Firehouse Table Talk.